All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today we're unpacking a fascinating ancient story that absolutely hits the nail on the head when it comes to the secret of life satisfaction. It perfectly captures this subtle trap that, if we're being honest, almost every single one of us falls into on a daily basis. It's a pretty simple fable, but man, it holds a profound truth about how we perceive our own self-worth. So, get comfortable and let's decode the real meaning of happiness together.
We start right in the thick of it. The emotional stakes here are sky high, kicking off with the desperate, rock-bottom mindset of our main character, a completely miserable crow. He's just sitting in a tree, weeping, and when someone asks him why, he completely pours his heart out. He feels entirely unloved. He believes that people are constantly shooing him away in disgrace, that they refuse to feed him, and that the world just hates his existence. He is in such a dark place that he literally declares death would be better than living his current life. It's a pretty heavy start, I know, but it perfectly sets up exactly why what happens next is so incredibly important.
Part 1. The Unhappy Crow and Meeting the Monk.
So, picture this. A single tear falls from the crow and lands right on the cheek of a compassionate monk sitting underneath the tree. Hearing this heartbreaking confession, the monk tries to offer some initial wisdom, basically telling him, we should all learn to be happy in whatever condition we're in. But the crow? He is way too deep in his own misery to even process that. So the monk makes this totally unbelievable offer. He tells the crow not to be upset and says, "Tell me what you want to be. I can make you that." Using a special mantra, the monk promises to magically transform the bird. Instantly, the crow is overjoyed and begs to be turned into a beautiful, majestic swan.
Now here's the kicker. The monk actually agrees. But he doesn't just snap his fingers and make it happen. Instead, he gives the crow a very specific quest. First, he has to go find a swan. Second, he has to actually ask that swan if he is happy with his life. And third, he has to return to the monk with the answer. Essentially, the monk forces the crow to verify his assumptions about happiness before making a permanent, life-altering change.
Moving on to Part 2, the search for happiness and the illusion of color.
This part right here perfectly illustrates that massive, massive gap between perception and reality. The crow finds a swan swimming in a pond, and he's just heaping on the praise. "You are as white as milk, everyone loves you, you absolutely must be the happiest bird in the world." That is the crow's idealized perfect view. But the swan's reality? It's a total shock to the crow. The swan says he isn't happy at all. Why? Because he feels a lack of color. He literally says white is nothing compared to the beautiful colors out there in the world. He feels entirely inadequate compared to another bird.
So, wait. Who does the swan actually envy? The parrot. Driven by the swan's jealousy, the crow immediately abandons the pond and flies off to find this parrot, blindly assuming that if a lack of color makes the swan sad, then having vibrant color simply must be the golden ticket to true happiness.
And guess what? We see the exact same pattern play out again. A stark contrast. The crow finds the parrot and delivers the same speech. "You're so colorful and beautiful. You must be the happiest bird." But the parrot totally shatters this illusion too. The parrot's reality is just a nightmare of anxiety. He isn't enjoying his colors at all. He is terrified of them. Because he's so beautiful, people want to keep him as a pet. He lives in this constant, gripping fear that someone is going to catch him and lock him in a cage forever. And right on cue, the parrot points to an even more colorful bird, the peacock, as the one who must truly, finally be the happiest.
Which brings us to Part 3, the peacock's cage and the true cost of beauty.
So, still chasing this constantly shifting goalpost of happiness, the crow finally tracks down the peacock. But he's not in the wild, he's in a crowded zoo. The crow waits for hundreds of people to clear out, then tells the peacock how incredibly lucky he is to have thousands of admirers, especially compared to the crow, who just gets shooed away. But the peacock reveals the darkest truth yet. His extreme beauty is the exact thing that led to his entrapment. He's stuck in a zoo. And worse, when people want decorative items, they pluck his colorful feathers, which hurts him deeply. The very thing everyone else envied turned out to be the source of his greatest pain.
Now, this is the emotional turning point of the whole story. The crow is just totally stunned. He asks, "Look, if you aren't happy, who is?" The peacock looks at him and delivers this brilliant twist. He tells the crow that after examining the zoo very carefully, he realized the crow is actually the only bird that humans don't try to catch or lock up.
By sharing that simple observation, the supposedly perfect peacock totally flips the crow's perspective upside down. The peacock confesses his ultimate dream.
For the past few days, he's been wishing he were a crow, so he could just happily roam everywhere and be completely free. The crow, who literally started the day wishing for death, suddenly realizes his everyday reality is exactly what the most beautiful bird in the world desperately desires. For the first time ever, he is incredibly happy just to be a crow. He flies right back to the monk and says he doesn't want to change a thing. He's perfectly fine just the way he is.
Let's wrap it up with part 4, the trap of comparison and escaping the cycle.
What a wild shift in mindset, right? So, how does this actually apply to you and me? Well, the core problem we all deal with every single day is this vicious cycle. We start by making completely unnecessary comparisons with others, scrolling through social media, looking at our neighbors, checking out our coworkers. That immediately leads to feeling down about our own lives. Then, we start cursing ourselves, feeling totally unworthy or unsuccessful. And why? Because we are exclusively laser-focused on what we don't have and completely blind to the freedoms and the gifts we already possess.
The absolutely crucial takeaway here is just the complete futility of playing this game. It is literally a mathematical certainty there will always be someone out there who has more than you do and someone who has less. If your master plan for happiness relies on being at the absolute top of the comparison ladder, you will never, ever win. You are just setting yourself up for a lifetime of misery, always chasing the next swan, the next parrot, the next peacock.
If we distill the monk's teachings, we're left with these incredibly hard-hitting rules for life. This is exactly how you break the cycle. First, you have to actively learn to be happy with what you have. It's a daily practice, not just some passive feeling that hits you. Second, be satisfied with your condition. And third, the golden rule, do not compare yourself to anyone. The original story states it so plainly. A person who is satisfied with what they have is the happiest person in the world, while the one who constantly compares is simply the saddest.
To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over today. Take a real, genuine second to ask yourself, who is your swan? Who's your peacock? What self-imposed cages are you building right now just by focusing on their colorful feathers instead of your own absolute freedom? Remember the crow, appreciate your own wings, and step out of that comparison trap today. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.